I never imagined I'd end up on the bad side of our HOA president. But here we are. My name's Daniel, and I moved into Sycamore Heights 3 years ago after a car accident left me with partial mobility in my right leg. The neighborhood seemed perfect. Quiet streets, pristine lawns, and most importantly, a driveway wide enough for my specialized van. Everything was peaceful until I applied for something I thought was simple, a disabled parking sign in front of my home. I followed every rule, submitted my application, got city approval, and by Tuesday morning, workers had installed a sign. By Wednesday afternoon, I noticed something strange. The pole was leaning at an odd angle. Curious, I checked my security cameras, and my jaw dropped. There was Linda Pearson, the infamous HOA president, or Karen, as most neighbors called her, strutting up to my sign in her crisp white capris and pastel cardigan, carrying garden shears. She actually tried to cut through the metal pole. I confronted her by email, thinking maybe this was a misunderstanding. Her reply came fast and unapologetic. That sign violates HOA aesthetic guidelines. Remove it immediately or face $50 daily fines. I explained, politely, that the sign was approved by the city and protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Her answer? Not in Sycamore Heights. It doesn't. The next morning, the sign was completely gone, severed clean through. My cameras caught her at 5:30 a.m., this time with an electric saw, and even paused and looked directly into the lens with a smug smile before walking away. I needed that sign. On bad days, walking even short distances was agony. Still, instead of losing my temper, I wrote her another polite email. I noticed my sign has been damaged. I'll be reinstalling it per city ordinance. I even included links to disability laws, keeping my tone professional. Her response? Any new installations require written HOA approval. Denied in advance. What Linda didn't know was that I'm an attorney, specializing in property law. I called a contact at the city planning office, and they agreed to reinstall the sign free of charge. We've had issues with this HOA before, the clerk admitted. By Friday, the new sign was up, and this time I was ready. I repositioned my security cameras and even hit a motion-activated one inside a decorative birdhouse my neighbor, another victim of Linda, helped me set up. Sure enough, Saturday at 6 a.m., Linda appeared again, now in jogging clothes and armed with a cordless reciprocating saw. I watched live on my phone as she started cutting into the pole, her face set in grim determination. The night before, I'd called the police non-emergency line to give them a heads up. So when I dialed 911 that morning, I simply mentioned my previous report. 2 officers pulled up while Linda was mid-slice. The look on her face? Priceless. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth froze in a perfect O of shock. And then she tried to act innocent. Linda froze for a moment, then awkwardly tried to hide the saw behind her back, as if that would somehow make it vanish. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" one of the officers asked, though the answer couldn't have been more obvious. "Board inspection," Linda replied without hesitation, as if she'd rehearsed it. This sign wasn't approved by the HOA Architectural Committee. She said it with such ironclad confidence that for a second, I almost questioned myself. Almost. I walked over, phone in hand, showing them the live feed and documentation from the previous incidents. "Officers, this is the 3rd time Miss Pearson has vandalized my legally installed disabled parking sign. I have city permits and full approval for this accommodation." The officers took statements from both of us. Linda stood her ground, insisting that, as HOA president, she had the authority to remove any unauthorized installations, city permits or not. Officer Rodriguez, the older of the two, looked like he was fighting back a smirk as he explained very clearly that HOA rules do not override city ordinances, federal disability laws, or, most importantly, the law against vandalizing city property. When they informed Linda she was being cited for vandalism, her face turned crimson. "Do you know who I am?" she snapped, her voice climbing to a pitch that probably set off car alarms down the street. "My brother-in-law is Deputy Mayor Stevens. This will not stand." The officers exchanged a quick glance but kept writing the citation without missing a beat. I thought that might be the end of it. A fine, maybe some community service. But Linda wasn't the type to take her lumps and move on. That very afternoon, every homeowner in Sycamore Heights received an emergency HOA bulletin from her, claiming I was abusing disability accommodations and suggesting I wasn't truly disabled enough to need special parking. She even included pictures of me carrying groceries and walking my dog as so-called evidence. That crossed the line. I contacted my doctor, the city's Disability Resource Center, and a colleague who specializes in discrimination cases. Together, we filed for an emergency injunction and a restraining order against Linda and the HOA board. The case landed on the desk of Judge Michaels, a woman famous for her no-nonsense rulings in neighborhood disputes. 2 weeks later, we faced off in court. Linda strolled in with the HOA's attorney, looking confident in a navy blazer and pearl necklace. I represented myself, armed with a flash drive holding everything: security footage, emails, and my medical records. Her attorney gave a passionate speech about HOA authority and neighborhood aesthetics, carefully avoiding the actual vandalism and harassment. When it was my turn, I didn't say much. I simply played the footage. First clip: Linda hacking at the sign with garden shears. Second, her early morning electric saw attack, complete with that smug look straight into my camera. Third, the reciprocating saw, the police arrival, and her attempted cover-up. Then I pulled up the email where she outright questioned my disability, highlighting the part where she all but accused me of fraud. By the time the footage ended, Judge Michaels had removed her glasses and was staring directly at Linda, her brow furrowed. "Ms. Pearson," the judge said, her voice measured but ice cold, "are you aware that tamper with a disability accommodation is a civil rights violation, and that publicly questioning the legitimacy of someone's documented disability borders on defamation?" The temperature in the courtroom seemed to drop 10 degrees. "The court grants a restraining order," she said firmly. "Ms. Pearson is to remain at least 50 feet from the plaintiff's property at all times. Furthermore, I am issuing a $5,000 fine for civil rights violation and referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges regarding the repeated vandalism of city property." I glanced at Linda, expecting a flash of anger. Instead, I saw something far more satisfying: pure shock. Her face had drained of all color, and her hand froze midair where she'd been about to tap her attorney's shoulder. For a woman who had built her entire identity around wielding authority through rules and regulations, being on the receiving end of real legal consequences seemed to short-circuit her brain. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Judge Michaels pressed on. "Additionally, I am ordering Ms. Pearson to step down from her position as Homeowners Association president, effective immediately. Her actions demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of the limits of HOA authority and a concerning pattern of targeted harassment." That broke the spell. "You can't do that," Linda blurted, her voice echoing across the courtroom. "The HOA bylaws don't give you the law." Judge Michaels cut in sharply. "Gives me that authority, Ms. Pearson. And unlike HOA regulations, my orders are legally binding and enforceable. Court officers, please escort Ms. Pearson out as she continues to disrupt these proceedings." Linda sank back into her chair, the fight draining from her. In less than 20 minutes, the carefully constructed little kingdom where she reigned supreme had been demolished brick by brick. When the hearing adjourned, I caught sight of her in the hallway. She was staring down at her phone in disbelief, no doubt reading the court order that had just been emailed to all parties. For the first time since I had moved into Sycamore Heights, Linda Pearson was utterly and gloriously speechless.